Hello and welcome back to another episode of A Team Profile and Projection. Today we are covering your Washington Nationals. You guys ranked them as the 28th best team in Major League Baseball. Last year they finished 20 games below 500, 71 and 91. Last in the NL East. They missed the postseason. They sure did. But I got good news. They were pretty decent in extra inning games, 6-2. In one-run games, they had a winning record, 21-28, and they got some studs down on the farm. But Jake, who do they have that has grown?
Who do they have that has grown?
Not on the farm, but in the...
Is that gone and returning all in one, maybe?
I don't know. There needs to be a version of the farm.
You know what it is?
In the house?
Whenever Jimmy sees Joan Adone's name, it kind of sends him spiraling for a little bit.
I haven't seen that name, Joan Adone.
But they've added Jimmy's guy, Joey Gallo. A lot of pop in that outfield. Dylan Floro, he's always in a major league bullpen. He gets added. Nick Senzel, former top prospect from the Reds, gets an opportunity. And Juan Yepes stays hitting on a minor league deal. They lost Chad Cool Breeze Hurler, Michael Chavis, who's always mashing lefties, Carl Edwards Jr. went back to the Cubs, Hobie Harris, all-time name, and Dom Smith's out, and Andres Machado, Corey Dickerson. How about that? Blake, I don't want to speak about the Rutherford. Trev, what's the lineup look like? A little bit of funk.
Shout out Blake Rutherford, my guy. I came before the show and said, guys, I don't like this lineup as much as maybe I should. C.J. Abrams moved him to the leadoff spot. He started banging the ball around a little bit. He's a guy I definitely like. I love watching the guy play defense. If he gets that bat going a little bit, we're talking about an all-star player. Lane Thomas, main source of pop in the lineup. Right fielder, Kybert Ruiz behind the dish. You mentioned Joey Gallo. Average wiener size went up. The Nationals by bringing him in. Joey Meneses.
Stone Garrett
huge
disagrees.
2022. Stone Garrett too. Probably 2022 big year for Meneses. 2023 took a little bit of a downturn. Still had like 89 ribs on the year. Still be a productive major league hitter. The aforementioned Stone Garrett. He was modeling those uniforms, looking good. Luis Garcia at second base. Nick Senzel at third base. Victor Robles in center field. I also like watching him play. On the bench, you got Riley Adams, Alex Carter Keyboom, and then my favorite name is Ildemaro Vargas. He's a switch hitter, utility player. James, what about that rotation?
The rotation has names that I know. Josiah Gray, Mackenzie Gore, Jake Irvin, Patrick Corbin. Final year on the...
I don't think so.
So I didn't think that either, but I Googled... Masson had an article. Any reason to believe anything will change in Corbin's final year?
It is.
Oh, it is.
Okay.
I thought he did too.
I thought I got by Masson. Corbin's final year, and Trevor Williams.
Wow.
Oh, our guy.
Yeah. So that's the rotation as we speak. Names to watch: Jackson Rutledge and Spencer Watkins. Dual closer situation, it says here. Kyle Finnegan and Hunter Harvey. Setup man Dylan Floro. Long reliever, Joan Adone. Jordan Weems. It's a bad name. Robert Garcia, Tanner Rainey, and Jose Ferrer. Those are your pitchers. The rotation's a rotation of starters.
So I mentioned that I was going to ask you guys a question about Josiah Gray before the show.
Ask away.
Now, Josiah Gray had a nice year last year. I have a guy in my mind who I'm like, is Josiah Gray going to be the next Kyle Gibson? And that is a compliment because we know Kyle's been in the league for a long time. Is Josiah Gray one of those guys that we're going to look back in, 5-6 years and be like, dude, this guy's like put up a pretty decent career. Like he's been here, he's like learned, he's adjusted, done all these things. Is that something that's on your guys' radar? Because that's kind of came to mind when I started watching some of the highlights and just kind of looked at his overall numbers.
Yeah, I think just looking at the data, and guys know I like looking at the pitch mix. Josiah Gray, changed his pitch mix a lot last year, but in a weird, funky way. He went from, kind of being a 3-pitch pitcher, fastball, curveball, slider, to being basically a 5-pitch pitcher. He brought the cutter into play, the sinker into play. I think he needs to find the top 3 out of the new mix, because that's a lot of pitches.
Yes.
And it's too many to, I think, handle and know which is going to be on and which isn't going to be on. So hopefully this year in the spring, he's like, all right, these are my mainstays. And it's nice to go into a bag of tricks when you got faced the third time through the lineup. But so it definitely seems like there's room for growth and, getting to final form for Gray. So I got a lot of hope and promise.
All-world person like Gibby. Came through the office. Awesome dude. Was just hanging. And a fun story. And I don't know. I think there's some numbers the geeks don't like around Gray for this year. I always like a pitcher who's getting reps and getting better. Like he, in 2022, he led the National League in homers allowed and walks allowed. Last year, he did not. He went from 38 homers allowed in 148 innings to 22 in 159. So that's good. You'd love to see him get the walks down a little bit. And he started a game at the stadium last year, and I remember watching him, and he was nibbling a lot. And I don't know if that's just being young. I don't know what that necessarily is, but I'm interested to see the next step of his growth as a pitcher, because, man, last year's a really nice season as a 25-year-old starting pitcher. So, yeah, I like the Gray Gore up top. That's fun.
Gray Gore.
Both G.
Random video of Josiah Gray. A strike to tie
Nice.
France.
That's big.
That's big.
I think one of the other storylines of this team is, where's the pop going to come from? And they haven't had a guy hit 30 home runs since 2019, which is kind of interesting. I don't know how many teams can boast that. That seems pretty out there, although 30 home runs is not easy to hit. They ranked 29th in homers during the 2023 season. Lane Thomas was the only national hit over 20 homers. They bring in Joey Gallo, who you guys picked on the homer draft, and said he could hit 45 homers, and he could. Given 600 plate appearances, there's no doubt that there's a possibility. But, that's something that we have to look at in this lineup. Like, where is that going to come from? I still think that I think that they're in a phase here where they're just trying to see what they got, whether that is they're bringing in different minor league free agents or guys that are at the top of the minor league depth chart to see if they can compete at the major league level. There is this group of outfielders that they've drafted that they're really high on, or not only drafted, but they got in the trade for Juan Soto, James Wood being one of them. They have that Dylan Cruz, James Wood, Robert Hassel III dream outfield, hopefully coming for them in a couple of years. James Wood is a guy who's, I guess I wasn't familiar with his game. Then I started looking it up. 6'7", 240. Dad played pro basketball in Europe. Can kind of go get it out there. He's still got the speed. They're calling him a 5-tool guy. Even though he's 6'7", 240, he can run. So there's promise there coming with the Nationals and some of the guys down on the farm. But at the major league level, yeah, we're still waiting on the offense to kind of get it going a little bit.
I toss and turn a little bit on these Nationals because they made a huge leap last year. They went from 55 games to winning 71 games. And it was, for a while they were above the Mets. They end up limping to the finish line a little bit. But this team, by September, they were flirting around with 500 a little bit. And it's interesting. Jim, I know you opened up with extra innings and one-run games, which a lot of years, those are variables that they feel like teams can't super control. You know about the division. And yeah, like Trev, you started with the lineup. I don't know, every time I start getting excited, I come down a little bit because like Stone Garrett kind of balled out for them last year.
Good year.
He's slotted in like the 7th, 6th hole of their lineup. So it's like, okay, what if that is something? Like Abrams at the top, if he takes another step with everyone thinks he's going to be, that dude is a guy. And Lane Thomas, sneaky, been like a plus player for 3 years now. We just kind of, I think the name Lane Thomas hasn't been helping him. I don't know. This team also got the best of Jamer Candelario last year. Remember how good he was playing? That I don't know. Ruiz behind the dish really scares me. His throwing out runner numbers are like historically bad. So does he, do they try to, at some point in this season, does he become a DH or do they try first base or something? Like, this feels like another learning year for the Nationals, and you wonder, like, Dylan Cruz is an all-world guy. Does he end up on the Nats at the end of this year, and we start kind of a 25 Nationals hype train? I think it heads that way, but there could be regression from last year. I think there should be.
Well, Vegas thinks there will be a little regression as well. And I think what's happening here, Jake, is that they have these young prospects and they have guys that played well last year. And I think they picked up too much speed because they are in a whoa, let's just like slow down mode. Ownership, GM. They got an NL East that's crazy right now. The Marlins won 83 or whatever games, 84 games last year. The Mets should be better than what they were last year, you think. There's 4 teams that I think are better than them. If they were to have a season that we've seen teams have where they're ahead of schedule, you're like, oh, shit. And now they have to address it by helping out, by bringing up the young guys, by trading and bringing guys in. I think the Nationals would say, no. In 2 years, everyone's off the books. That's our window. We want to attack 2026. We want Wood and Cruz to be, guys in 2026. And that's when we can maybe go get a free agent or some splashes or get another thing. So I think they are going to go slow this year and maybe even next year, even if the talent isn't. Like we saw the Orioles the year before, what was it, 2022? We were like, hey, guys, help them out. And they were like, nah, we're gonna sell at the deadline still. I think that's where the Nats are.
Yeah. There's some stuff going around the organization as well that'll, I think agree with your point there. They were listed to sell the team 2 years ago, and like it never came to fruition. Part of that I've been reading is about the Masson Sports Channel. They don't own the rights to their games. The Orioles own that network and apparently own the rights there. So there's been kind of some back and forth about that. And now the Orioles sell right in front of their face. There's some interesting things going on. So if you're looking for them to add payroll or anything anytime soon, which, there's obviously so much room, they're not going to do that. I think you're totally right about that. Probably the 2026 season, we'll start to see them push the chips towards the middle of the table a little bit more because of the timing of the prospects and where they're at as an organization. And I believe, some of this Orioles stuff and the TV deals, it's affecting a lot of different teams in different ways. And the Nationals are one of those as well.
I hope that some of these kids get called up, I don't know where they are in Rule 5, if they have to get put on the 40-man soon, but if they do have to get put on the 40-man soon, then just, give them, some injuries. But they might not. They might not get called up at all this year. They're still pretty young, and they neither have had taken at-bats in AAA. But I do think that there is a fun future here. It's just not this year or next year for the Nats.
I think another thing that's just funny and running through my head, and that's kind of how we've gotten to this point, talking baseball, subscribe. Mike Rizzo, who's kind of openly been one of an old school GM a little bit, and he's talked about that, and they've kept the manager and everything like that. I think the rebuild they're going for here is a traditional up the middle. They brought in Ruiz. He was a big part of that trade, and he hits a little bit as a young catcher. The defensive stuff is scary. Let's see what happens with this. And they
signed him.
Let's see what happens at the start of this year because you got to figure that out. They got the 2 young guys up the middle, C.J. Abrams, the young shortstop. Luis Garcia, he's 23. He played the whole season last year. And then these outfielders that are on the way with those 2 guys on the bump that you like that are young pitchers, it feels like they're going for a core. And I hope, a Carter Keyboom or Nick Senzel, guys who were 2 big-time prospects and dealt with different injuries or blocks along the way, Will one of them kind of have that full opportunity and blossom a little bit? That would be fun. And you hope you see some of that blossoming with those uniforms, Trev. That's full circle. But yeah, I guess that's what I'm talking myself into. Last year, it felt like a lot of things kind of clicked. I feel like that could not happen this year, and that's still okay. Like, Finnegan and Harvey at the deadline this year, could those guys be something that could get you a real piece as they start eyeing a 25-26? And I know that's not the most fun mindset, but it's real with this team.
I keep clicking around all these names on the roster, and I'm going through different baseball reference pages. There's so many first and second rounders on this team. Let's go, guys. Let's live up to that potential. I didn't.
Okay. They could use a Trevor Plouffe.
In the clubhouse?
5 years at third.
Yeah. What about that over-under? What's DraftKings saying about that?
DraftKings is telling the people that, hey, you can get in on this over-under action. They've got NBA. They've got everything. Like, click around the app. You'll find something. But right now, they're offering their no-sweat bet up to $1K. If your first bet loses, you can find yourself in a nice little situation there. And new customers use that promo code Talkin, and you'll get that no-sweat bet at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app. Use code Talkin. The crown is yours only at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Where are these natty natties at?
They won 71 games last year, and they have them at 66.5 this year. I think they're thinking the Mets are going to get better. That seems like did they get that much worse?
Did the Marlins get worse?
What was it, a 5-game swing? But like 70 games means like, oh, we weren't all pretty bad. There's just some bad teams in the league.
Yeah.
This year.
God.
Taking the over. It's my first over of the TPPs. I'm going to take it. I see some spark in the lineup. I see some guys that are playing for certain things that, whether it's money or to get more playing time, the motivation is there. I'm gonna take the over.
The lineup does have a spark effect to it. Like a couple of these guys, it's like, hey, maybe, right?
Maybe. I just don't know. Like the second half of the season, I don't know if they address and help.
You take this lineup or the Rockies lineup?
The top prospects are coming.
Well, I like this better than the Rockies because they have prospects and like promise.
Well, the lineup, like as we read them out.
This team, I think.
Okay.
I don't know.
I think they're close.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to really think about it, and probably at that point, I'd think this isn't worth it.
Yeah. It's tight, and that's unfortunate. But the problem is the Nats can get pitching efforts where the Rockies, a lot of great pitchers have not been able to really pitch there. We already talked about them. What's the number? 66.5?
65.5?
66.
66.5. How many teams?
I'm gonna go under. I'm gonna go to the 1-run game. 1-run games 28-21. I mean that's
they got a real manager, Jake.
That's like a high level. That's a high performing team. Extra innings 6-2.
Is that?
Yes. Go look at 1-run game stats, bro. No ball, touch grass.
Obviously, someone's gonna lose them and someone's gonna win them.
Well, and that's the thing. So
4 teams finished under 66.5 last year. So you think they're going to be bottom 4, and do you think there will be that bad this year?
I think so. I like you're saying with the Mets, they should be at least a little more punchy than they were. I was going to knock the Marlins, and that's a team that, again, on paper, you kind of start tilting your head. But I don't know. I respect that they made a jump from 55 to 71, but that feels like a slight aberration, and I have it regressing a bit. I'll go with the under. And that the pitching is pretty thin after those first 2 guys, that if one of those young guys has either a bump or injury or whatever it may be, then that rotation starts feeling a lot different. So I'll go under.
Okay, Trev.
I already locked in the over already. It's my
You
first one
did?
of the TPPs, and I don't know. I think there's motivation on this team.
I'm going to make my decision on one stat that I'm looking up right now.
Go.
And it's the sprint speed of the Nationals, and if they're good or bad. Garrett's above average. Abrams is fast. Lane Thomas is really fast. Young Jacob.
Lane Thomas is good.
I'm gonna take the over. My thought process is with teams like the Pirates last year or Cincy who have this young talent that can run in the new baseball world. They can run themselves into wins with just like kind of athleticism, and I think there is some young, quick athleticism here, and hopefully it's a fun watch. Again, I don't think they're gonna have a winning record or have them finishing fifth, but I'll take the over.
That's the app.
That's the episode. If you enjoyed it, subscribe because there's a lot more coming and the teams get better. Appreciate you.
Maybe they do. Maybe they don't.
I'm thinking about flipping my A's over under already.
I already thought about that. Like,
56 and a half.
A's might win 42 games.
It's a low number, but it feels
What?
right.
42.
they're essentially playing in the COVID year, no fans. That's tough. Not fans' fault.
Like, can they be 6 games better than last year?